You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Mr. Tom Shay today. Tom is a Bigfoot researcher down there from the state of Kentucky. He has been researching the subject for 38 years and currently has the largest collection of unique Bigfoot casts east of the Mississippi River, all that have been casted by him specifically. And I do also know that his work has been validated by people such as Cliff Barackman and the late Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I've seen some of his collection in person, and they are incredible to see. If you ever get the chance to see them in person, I would definitely recommend it. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show today, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, and I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely, sir. Whenever I talk to researchers on the show, I love to start out with, what was it that first got you into the Bigfoot subject to begin with?
I first got into it was my first sighting.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's go right into it.
In 1987, I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I had some leave time secured, and I decided to come home and see my parents, like a week here. I got here, I spent a couple of days. I had an ex-girlfriend that called me up and said, I heard you in town. Can you come up? We'll go out and do something tonight and have some fun. Will you go back? I said, sure. I'll be up there this afternoon, pick you up and stuff. I got cleaned up and everything and started up the US 36, Highway 36. And now that's along the Ohio River, from Milton, Kentucky to Carrollton, Kentucky. And right across the river is Indiana, Madison, Indiana. And a lot of people need to understand that in 1987, this small community around here closed up at 5:30. And there was really nobody on the roads at that time. So it's late in the afternoon. It's in October, about like it is right now. And we was having some 80, 85 degree weather at that time. It was an unusually warm October. And so I'm driving on my way up to Carrollton, Kentucky, and I see that girl. And I noticed this gentleman, I thought was a gentleman, up on the side of the road. It wasn't, I was kind of confused because this person had a fur coat on. And I'm trying to figure out why this guy got a fur coat on at 85 degrees out. So when I get close, I'll slow down, and I'm looking out the passenger window at it. And I'm really not understanding what I'm seeing. This is a large, hairy person. After I passed, I sped up a little bit, turned around, come back, pulled off the side of the road, and actually got out of the car and followed it down into the field along the river there after it had crossed. And the reason I did that is because I had to understand what I saw. I'm getting ground on it and stuff like it. And it turned around on me real quick, and it snarled or growled. And at that time there, I knew it was time to go back to the car. I went back to my parents' house, told my parents thought I'd been drinking. I said, Mom, Dad, I just left the house. I said, I ain't been gone maybe 10 minutes. And so I went back in my room in there, and I sat down, and I'm trying to figure things out. And my dad comes in and says, you going up there to see your girlfriend? I said, Dad, I ain't going nowhere. I said, I'm just a little too shook up right now. And he said, okay. Left it at that. My parents didn't believe in things like that. And I really didn't either growing up. But after that, I went back to the Fort Campbell, and all that time I started digesting everything about the Bigfoot phenomenon, reaching out to other researchers and reading books and trying to get anything I can. And one of the biggest things was at that time where researchers would not share or want to talk or discuss anything with anybody else. It was all so cryptic, secretive. Everybody was afraid he was going to take their limelight away. When I started researching, I decided, you know what? I'm going to start everything I find out, I'm going to share with everybody. I don't care. And ever since then, that's what I've been doing, is sharing information, anything. Now, I don't know it all. I'm not an expert. But I am. I am a seasoned researcher. That's one of the biggest things that I have right there. I like to help other researchers get started.
Tom, that's great. What a way to start things off for you, seeing what you saw that October by the Ohio River. My goodness, how tall was what you saw?
To be totally honest, I really couldn't be honest with you about it. I just know it was huge. Honestly, I had a lot of things going on in my mind at this time, trying to figure things out, and I just know it was huge. It was wider than I was in the shoulders. And I do remember, because I'm telling this story, and everything's coming back, and I can see the smells and everything for that day. I remember I was have to look up at it in the face.
Gotcha. Listeners will know, just in case someone's not following the map of sighting encounters that I have on BigfootSocietyPodcast.com, I want to point out that this area that you're talking about is just across the river from southern Indiana that has really come up on the show quite a bit. If you've heard the episode about Floyd Knobs, Austin Bottoms, that's the area of Indiana, but across the river a little bit to the west of where Carrollton is. It looks like it's a little bit further southwest. But Tom, after you had this encounter and then you start looking and researching into things, so was that the thing that pushed you over 100% into, okay, now I'm going to start going out there all the time? Or were you still at the point where you're like, you know what, I'm not quite sure that I want to go out there and start looking all the time into this yet?
At that time, I needed to know what I looked at, what I saw. There was a blank spot there. I saw something that shouldn't be there. Growing up, you're taught that with evolution and stuff, we're the only humans here. There's nothing else on here. You just got your cows, your deer, and stuff like that. There's not other type of humanoid creature around here. So, for my own state of mind, I had to find out what I saw, what I had witnessed.
So you start going out on this really quest to figure out what it is that you saw. You were talking to other people, you were reading books, but then did you also start to go into these areas to start to see if you could find this creature again?
Yes. Yeah, well, I was in the service. When I had a lot of time, I could get a week off and leave or something like that. I would hop a military flight and go out to Washington State, California, Oregon, was Oklahoma a couple times, Arkansas. Did some stuff in Illinois, Ohio, Michigan. Did some really good work up in Michigan around Grayland. Did some stuff in Georgia. But it wasn't long-term stuff. I was there like 3 or 4 days and got to feel the place and everything.
That's interesting. Did you have any things that happened to you in that section of the Pacific Northwest, like your Washington, Oregon, Northern California? Did anything happen to you when you would go out there?
I had some things that happened, but I couldn't say for sure that it was Bigfoot related because I didn't see it. And I couldn't explain what happened. I heard sounds and stuff like that. Just because you hear something in the woods doesn't mean it's a Bigfoot.
Absolutely. So you mentioned this Grayland, Michigan area. What was it that happened up there specifically?
I really don't want to talk about that right now until I talk to the people I was with.
Sure.
I promised them I wouldn't say too much about it, but I have been working up in that area. If there's a military installation up there, a proving ground, like training area, up around that area there. So,
yeah, we can definitely, we'll put that to the side, no problem at all. So, Tom, you're traveling around the U.S. It sounds like you're checking out the specific areas that you know are good. You're having things that might be considered encounters, but you're not having maybe visuals like out in the Pacific Northwest. Was there a time then where you finally broke through and you're like, oh, I was able to have another sighting or have something happen within a shadow of a doubt? Okay, I'm here experiencing this creature again.
When I got out of the service, the traveling thing stopped. I focused my research locally. I went to the sheriff's department. I went to the library, actually historians in your town. If you have a historical society, you can look up, like here in my county, in 1962, there was an outbreak of a Bigfoot type creature that was terrorizing the county. They call it the Thing, or the Bedford Beast. It looked in windows, it harassed people, it took hogs, it killed a calf, livestock. It got so bad that the sheriff formed a posse, a hunting posse, and the state police joined in. There was a hunting group out of Louisville, TV stations. It hit the AP. This happened for about 30 days. And then after the big hunt, they had it cornered back here, and we have what they call the limestone caves along the riverbank here, one part of the hills. They'll have it up in there, but they didn't find it. And right after all that happened, it died down. And then periodically over the years, more people had seen it. Things have happened here. And it made me want to, maybe I just stay in my own little county here, since we had all this stuff going on. Maybe find out if there's anything else going on here in this county. I established myself here, and a lot of people know who I am and what I do. And if they have an encounter, they will contact me. Or if they know somebody who mentioned something about an odd thing happening, they'll say, why don't you go talk to that man, Tom Shay? He lives blah, blah, blah. And I get people here all the time talking to me. So I had a homeowner that thought he saw a bear. And it was right next to my farm, right across the road from my farm. And I said, can I go back in and look around? He goes, yeah, go ahead. So I went back in and looked around, and I was riding my four-wheeler and going along the access road. Now, this was like in 2014. And I come across these fresh cracks that had crossed over this access road. And then they were perfect. And like you said, you saw them before. These were perfect prints. And I'm excited, and I'm sitting down there, and I'm a guy that likes to sit down and note everything about everything that's going on. Because you got to do that. You got to note everything, your surroundings, the vegetation, the temperatures, the airspeed, what type of terrain, substrate. And I'll get about that here in a little bit. But anyway, I'm down here, and I'm checking these tracks out, and I'm measuring, and I'm documenting. And I get ready to start casting, and I carry a handgun. I always do, out in the woods. Not because I'm afraid of a Bigfoot or anything like that. I've actually walked up on homeless people in the woods. You just don't know what you're going to come up against in the woods. Other people. That's the one thing. And most of you know that if you've got something on your belt and everything you're trying to cast, it gets in your way all the time. So I took it off and put it on my four-wheeler, and it's 30 yards away, or 30 feet, maybe 30 feet. And I'm down here on my knees, and I'm getting ready to pour this casting material, and I got a whiff of something. And I go, oh, Lord, this stinks, man. It's like some of the septic tank. And I have to look up, and this thing had still been in the area and had come back. And it was on the other side of my four-wheeler, looking at me. And I sat there and looked at it while it looked at me, and it appeared like it was hours, but it was only seconds. And I tried to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to make a dash for my four-wheeler and get my handgun, or just sit here? And I decided I just want to sit there and watch it because I figured there's no way I'd make it in time. But like I said, it was just seconds, but it seemed like an eternity. It lost interest in me, sniffed the air, looked up in the air, sniffed, grunted, and started off down the ridge. And I have a habit of destroying phones in the field. And my wife got me a cell phone, a flip phone, cheapy. And at this time here, I took the phone out and hit video, and I'm actually walking behind it, videotaping it. And I'm not paying attention. Okay, I mean, my focus is on it, but I'm got the phone up and I'm recording. So after it went over the ridge and disappeared, I jumped on my four-wheeler. I left everything. Jumped on my four-wheeler and went back to my home, went in the house, and my wife knew I was excited. So she goes, "You got something on your phone, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And I downloaded it on the computer so I can watch it. And as soon as it came up, my wife says, "That was the best shirt I ever bought you." In the confusion, I had actually reversed the camera and was filming myself while I was following it.
Oh my goodness.
I tell people this part, and it's funny. It wasn't funny then. I had big alligator tears in my eyes. But I tell people this because in the heat of the moment, things happen you don't think. And I wasn't thinking. I tell other researchers this because they can learn from my mistake. Maybe they'll get the photo or the video. They'll calm down a little bit. But there's been other occasions where me and my team have seen them, and we sit there and we watch them for a couple minutes. And the next thing is nobody decided to take out a phone. Why? Because we're too immersed in looking at what we're seeing. That's it.
Wow, Tom. That's, yeah, I cannot imagine going through that. How far away was it from you when you were filming it?
It was a little bit further away from me. It wasn't as close as it was by my four-wheeler. I got some distance.
Gotcha.
I would say about 80 feet, 80 foot.
Oh, man. That's still all right. How big were the tracks it was leaving? 18
and a half inches. And these are the ones we call Goliath.
Okay.
He was seen a couple other times in that same area. Actually, on my farm at the pond, there's a big footprint, two big footprints that was down there by the bank, and a big handprint. And what we think was it stopped there at the pond, it squatted, put one hand down, and was drinking from the pond. And I cast one of the prints and one of the hands.
So how big across, remind me, because I know I've seen these, but it's been a few years. How big across is your hand cast of Goliath?
It's really huge, but you got to understand something. There's a lot of exaggeration because of the silt that it put its hand down. It was the damage. The weight dispersed out and made it look like it was a giant, but it really ain't. It really ain't that big. The hand is really not that big. It's just the damage it did when it's silk and it's the weight and the dispersal of the substrate. It was way bigger than my hand. If you open your both hands up and put your thumbs overlap each other, that's about how wide it is.
Okay. That makes sense.
Maybe 12 inches. I'm off the top of my head, I'm saying it, but I'm not really sure because it's not in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look here with all my notations in it. I could look it up, but I don't have it here with me right at the moment.
How tall is Goliath?
9.5 foot. And how we did that was I had a friend that was a researcher too, and it worked with me. We went back after that, later that next day, and I was down where I was casting at, and he went over to where it was at, and we used a yardstick and lifted up how high and we got an estimate of 9.5 foot that way.
Wow.
It was standing, and where I was there on my knees casting that print, and I could tell when I looked and saw it, I could tell where the head touched the branch behind it. And that's how I used it as a reference. So that's how we got the reference point on that.
Being able to just look at it for a short bit of time, but you said you looked at it and you're just taking it in. Do you remember any details from the face when you were able to just look at it?
Yes, I actually sketched the face. It wasn't a monkey-like, it wasn't gorilla-like, it was more man-like. It had a nose, a flat nose, not real flat. In all actuality, I'll tell you what, I actually, when I sketched it, the picture, right after I saw it, because I had it fresh in my mind, and I sketched it. Cliff has it in his museum. The original hanging in his museum of the sketch of Goliath.
I actually I have seen that. I was just there out in July, so I know exactly what you're talking about. That's awesome. What kind of head shape did it have from what you remember?
It really didn't have that much of a cone, but it was a large head, large cheekbones, had a really nice brow. Have you seen these things like the pictures of Neanderthals like that with a lot of hair? And the one thing about this one here, about Goliath, is he's reddish and brown. And everybody ever sees the picture of Patty, it's black, short, really nice coat of hair. Goliath didn't have that. He had matted hair, had debris in the hair and stuff like that. I could tell that. It wasn't kept up. It was like something that would live in the woods.
What kind of, let's say, what kind of muscular structure was Goliath? Is he a very muscular individual, or sometimes you have Bigfoot sightings and they're more lean and not entirely muscular?
He's pretty stout. He had a chest that you put two men in it, two big men, shoulder-wise. It was wide shoulders. It was muscular. It wasn't the superhero type stuff you look at, but you could tell it was muscular.
Did you notice anything about its hands or arms at all?
No. I mostly focused on the face. The one thing about growing up in a farm, when you have cattle and stuff like that, like bulls, when they get ready to charge you, they'll close their eyes. And same way with humans, when they get ready to lunge, they'll blink real good right before they do anything. So I was watching the eyes and the face, wondering if it was going to charge me or what. So,
did it have any emotion in its face while you were watching it?
Not really. No.
And the eyes, you mentioned you were looking at the eyes. Were they eyes where they were all one color, or did they have whites around the edges?
They were dark. I'll be honest with you, they were dark. It looked soulless, but that could be because of the shadow that was there or whatever, the lighting we had.
So you mentioned that this individual has also been seen multiple times around the same area?
Yes. I have multiple castings at different times of Goliath. And how we do that is Cliff and late Dr. Milton taught me this little trick, is that the big toe, you can always tell the big toe of each individual. The big toe will tell the story. Nobody has the same type toe structure. So Goliath has this arrowhead type toe, big toe. So that's how we figure out that's Goliath. The metatarsal break has that same push off and stuff, flexibility.
That's really interesting. Have the footprints changed in any ways over the years, or have they been pretty consistent the way it looks?
They have changed. Of course, prints are going to change anyway when you cast them. They're going to appear bigger or smaller or narrower. It all depends on the substrate. and how wet and how old they are, because in the wintertime they freeze, they expand, and then shrink, and because of the freezing effect. And in the summertime, from drying out and getting wet, they'll do the same thing. You'll have different things, but that's why you have to take notes and note everything in your footprint before you cast it. Then after you cast it, then you go over your cast and everything like that and study it more in detail. Now, we do have some juveniles that it's in the area, and I have one footprint of it about 6-7 years ago, and then another one, I think it was 4 years after that. It had it got a little larger and stuff as they grow. The same individual, because the toe structure was the same. And I believe I just got another one here just recently. I think it is the same individual, but I haven't cleaned the cast up yet. I'm still letting it cure, and then I'll go from there.
Can you share a little bit about what the other interactions have been like with Goliath? Have they been similar to your interaction, or have different things happened?
That one time it walked up on me. The other times people have seen it. And I think we actually saw it once more a couple years ago in a creek bed. It was just standing in the creek. I got a video of that, but it's really hard to see because where we was and where it was, you can see it walk out, but it was just a little too far away. But other people have seen what I think is Goliath, being curious, moving through. I think he's just one of the biggest males here in the county. And mostly all the time they ever see this big one is he's alone. He's not with a group or anything like that. He's always solitary.
That's a pattern I've heard before. Do you have any thoughts about why he is probably more a solitary individual than rather in a group, like a family group?
I believe he's an alpha male. My opinion is I believe the females are actually the ones that are more active or in family groups. And I just think that the males wander. That's my opinion.
That's interesting. So active, like how in, let's say, like the lion species, you have the female lions or the lionesses are more, they'll be out getting the food, being more active that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
I like that.
That's cool. That's cool. Over 38 years is a very long time to have things happen. Has there ever been an experience or an encounter where you did not really feel comfortable with what was going on, and if you could have gotten out of there at the same minute, let's get out of here?
There's been a couple, yeah. Yeah. Let's just say that a lot of these people walk around and say, all my years, I've never heard of anybody hurting anybody or anything like that. They're not violent, and there have been some violent tendencies that we have witnessed. I have witnessed. I was in Henry County, Kentucky. A gentleman called me up and said, I think I got these giant monkeys living on my place. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. And I said, can I come out and check it out? He goes, yeah, come on out. And I went out there. And most people say giant monkeys. I have to go out and I have to check the place out. There's been so many places I have gone that people have said they've seen something and it was just a shadow. Paranoia. They're seeing things in the woods that ain't there. I never found no prints. I never found no evidence and stuff like that. So I go out there and I check it out before I do a full expedition. So we're back here on his land. We're back up on his far way back in there. And so far, there's a little bit of sign, but I can't really be certain. And it was starting to get late. And I said, I'll tell you what, I said, I'll bring my team out this weekend and we'll come out. On our way back, it started getting dark. And I'm going to be honest with you, we were surrounded by something. We couldn't see them, but we had stuff beating the ground, screaming, beating their chest, throwing stuff at us. And we would move 100 yards to 200 yards, and then all of a sudden, boom, it all start over again. More stuff thrown at us, chest beating, screaming, pounding the ground. And the only thing I had was one of these little flashlights. I didn't have a big one or anything like that. And you couldn't see them. They was far enough back in the vegetation where we couldn't see nothing. And this kept happening all the time we was coming back to the house. We get back to his house, and he looks at me, and it all stops there. There's a big security light there at the house, and it stops. Nothing's going on now. And he looks at me and goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Go inside, lock your door, and don't come out until in the morning." And I came home. I got my car, came home. And my wife was still up, and she goes, "What do you think?" I said, "I quit." I said, "I'm not going back out." First time in my life I have ever been so scared of something that I could not see or could not deal with. If I can see it and I know what it is, I can deal with it. I might not survive. I can have a pretty good chance. I didn't know what I was dealing with. But we had the basic chest beating. We had pounding on the screaming, the throwing stuff at us. I mean, and I did some little research after that. It was like chimpanzees at war when something invades their territory. And that's really what it was. And there was a 3-month period that I wouldn't go out. I told my team, I said, "I quit." And it was John Gregory and Chief Lofton and Dusty Ruth, and the actually rest of my team that got me back out in the field. And I'll tell you what, that first night in the field, I was so uncomfortable because of what had happened at that thing, because it spooked me. And to this day, I am not comfortable being out in the woods by myself since that happened. Now, if I have to, I will. If I'm looking for tracks but usually I take somebody with me.
Did you ever go back to that same spot after you started back up again?
I did, and got ready to go back into it and backed out. And I'm not ashamed to tell you. Yeah, I mean, that place bothered me. And I swear, any other researcher go out and have something like that happen, I want to see how they react. Yeah, it brings up it's really rough right now talking about it because it does mess with you.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I know things like that are extremely hard to talk about. I not experienced that myself, but I can only imagine. That property owner, had the property owner actually had visuals of anything on the property, or was it a thing where it was unseen to that person as well?
No, he saw monkeys. He saw, actually, he said he saw monkeys. That was the reason why I went out there, because he said large monkeys. But still, you go out there with the expectation that it's going to be nothing. When I go out on a site when somebody sees something, my first thing is, tell me your story and stuff like that. Okay, you can tell me your story. Okay, I want to listen to you, and I'll take it. But in order for your story to have validation, I have to have some type of evidence. So that's why I have to go out and see if I can find a footprint. I can find anything.
Yeah, that was actually, I was going to ask you that next is, do you have a checklist for a place to pass before you can launch an actual full expedition into it? And so is the checklist pretty much you have to find some piece of evidence, or are there other things as well?
We have to find some type of evidence. If I don't find, I've been to some properties that I stepped out and walked maybe 30 yards into the woods, and I turned around and told the guys, I said, there's no sense. I said, it's going to be a wasted weekend here. There's nothing telling me that there's a Bigfoot here. And we'd stake it out. We stayed the weekend, and nothing happened. And the homeowner, the property owner, be sitting there with us. I don't know. They usually come out about this time. And then there was other times we were set up on a property, and the homeowner would be sitting there, the property owner, around the fire and stuff like that, and there would be this sound. You hear that? That's it. That's the Bigfoot. And it'd be a fox.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a good rule to follow. It puts you in the areas where you're going to have a much, much higher chance of having something legitimate happen. You are definitely known for casting tracks. Usually when people are mentioning Tom Shay, they're either talking about Goliath or they're talking about the tracks that you've cast. Do you have any advice about how to cast a good track to people that might not be pretty good at it yet?
Yeah, the best advice I can give you is if you want to learn how to really cast in all types of substrate, wet, snow, any of practice. And it's going to cost you some money, but practice. I go to Lowe's here or Menards, pick me up a 25-pound bag of plaster. I go out here, till me up a piece of a 6 foot by 6 foot place, till it up out there, and I go out and I walk in it. Or one day, while it's dry. Go out there, and the next day, go out there, put water it down real good, muddy, walk through it. So I can judge how much mix I got to use, the ratio of the water for the substrate, how wet it is and stuff. It takes time to learn this, but when you learn it, when you're out in the field, you can actually look at the substrate and say, okay, I don't need all this water here. I just have to use 20% of it, not all of it, because how wet it is. So ask questions. Other researchers who actually cast. There's a good video on YouTube of a gentleman showing how to cast. And it's a tracking video. And they cast the prints, and they show you how to cast it. And he even tells you that sometimes it looks like pancake mix when you mix. But there's other times that you're going to have to, the mix is going to have to be a little thicker or a little thinner, depending on the substrate, the type of print you get. And here recently, I've been practicing and casting in real thin, fine footprints that you find. You get that powdery stuff sometimes, and something walks in at you. So I'm practicing with that right now. But yeah, that's it. Practice and practice.
I'd say that's great advice. And also, I think this is with anything too. Be in the attitude where you never want to be in the attitude where it's, okay, I made it. That's not a good place to be. You're constantly practicing. You're constantly improving your craft. It sounds like that's where you are. And I would recommend people to be in that mindset with whatever they're doing. Is there a certain way that a certain type of thing you do where you are attempting to have interactions with Bigfoot that you find to be most successful? For example, some people are knocking on trees while some other people are, let's just put a chair down and let's sit in an area and see what happens.
We don't run around at nighttime. We don't beat on trees. We don't do calls or nothing like that, or whoops. What we do is, I call my not an organization. We call it a group, because each individual in the group has a searching skill that they got, audio, video, stuff like that. So when we got in the field, we don't sleep in tents, because if you're in a tent and you got activity going on, you're going to have to get up, fumble with the zipper, try to get out, and by the time you're out and getting your gear, everything's done. It's gone. We put up canopies. We put a couple out on the edge of the camp. We got like sentinels out there. We're like sentinels. We take turns at night. Everybody else is at camp. We're talking, trying to entice. These things, they find us curious, and they will come up to the edge of the camp. And that's why we got these guys out here in these chairs, zero gravity chairs. We sleep in zero gravity chairs all the time. All our equipment's set right next to us, so that if something happens, we can reach down, grab it, and we're filming. But we got the audio going. That's it. Because if you're coming out of a tent, you're going to be on your hands and knees, crawling out. You're going to try to we won't be able to see 360 degrees. That's when we're under a canopy. And these things will come up. We had one time. I had a group out, and my responsibility in the group is to keep everybody, make sure everybody's safe, make sure everybody's got water, and doing okay, medical-wise, and like that. The guys I have out on the edge of camp, and there's therming and stuff like that. If anything happens, they can call me. And I was up there checking on everybody by the fire and stuff like that. And just BSing like you do at a camp. Dusty out back here and said, Tom, you need to come over here, Mick. And I came over and said, what's up, Dusty? And he goes, I got this thing that come up, this heat signature came up, it stood up, and it hasn't moved. But I want you to take a look at it. So I grabbed my thermal, and I'm zooming out there, and I said, oh, yeah, I see it. And about that time, it moves. So it went down on all fours, and it's belly crawling all the way up to us. And it gets to a certain point where the creek is, and it's inside this creek up on by the bank. And we're watching it. And we sat there and watched it while it watched us for 2.5 hours. Now, I have affidavits from everybody that was there and watched it. They wrote up the thing and signed it. That we all saw this, and we all filmed it on our things. One of my guys wanted to go down and actually get close to it, and I told him, no, we'll observe. This is what this is. We're going to watch. So for that 2.5 hours while it watched us, and we watched it, and we're taking notes at this time here in video and audio. And it disappears. And what had happened was it sunk down into that creek bed, and we lost it in that creek bed. The next day we got up. With a thermal, you can't judge distance. We were surprised to find out that this thing was only like 3 car lengths from us. That's how close it was. 3 car lengths. So, yeah, we just sit. We don't do the calls. We don't do that. We do not do nothing in parks, state parks, or nothing or national forests. The simple fact is, I tell my crew is they're contaminated. Because, like Mammoth Cave, we got researchers in Mammoth Cave at one end and the other end. I believe you got all these researchers in there, and you got them over beating on trees or making whooping calls and stuff like that, and you're picking this up. You don't know if it's an actual foot or one of these research people. So we do it on private property. Nobody knows we go into this property. Nobody knows where we're at. In most places we go at, it's so we have to use side-by-sides to get back in there. And there's no electricity. It's all primitive. There's nothing. And if anybody is back there trying to screw with us at night when it's dark, they're not using a flashlight, then they got X-ray vision. They can see at night, infrared vision. Yeah.
Wow, Tom, that I was not expecting to hear that. You know, that's zero gravity chairs, no tent. This super gutsy, dude. So you have, I'm guessing, some kind of canopy over the chairs, though, when you're sleeping in them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's always two people on watch. Everybody else can get some rest and stuff. You got two people. Now, the way it is, when everybody's relaxed and everything, but when things happen, everybody knows what to do, and everybody's on the ball. They're doing their job. The fun and games is over with. Everybody's doing their job. And it's all scientifically based. It's not hearsay. If we get something, we have to have it on camera. We have to have it moving on camera or something like that. We have to have some type of physical evidence. The next day we go down and we look, we find the footprints or something like that. We document all that. We make castings. Okay, all this is done. It's all, you can't say, I saw this to somebody and not have the evidence. I can go out here and tell you all day long, I saw one up there on the hill today. Did you go up and check for footprints? No. Because I know they're there. I look at that there as, okay, you're just telling me you saw something up there, but you didn't go up there to check to make sure it was something. I asked them, like, were you afraid to? And no, I just know they're here. Okay, show me some evidence. I'm sorry. In the last 38 years, I've dealt with some really strange people. And I take everybody's sighting seriously, even though I find some lavishly stories. There's some really wild stories, but I document it because you never know. Things down the road might happen again. It's from somebody else. But here's one. I heard this witness was telling me that they saw this thing come out in a field, had a flying saucer come down, and this alien came out and this Bigfoot came out. And they come up close to each other. They did a chest bump and a high five and walked off in the woods together. Now, this was a witness telling me this. So, you can figure out what you thought about that story.
Gotcha. That's a pretty intense one. That kind of reminds me more like Southwest Pennsylvania stuff, to be honest. I do want to circle back to it at the end of our chat here because I think it's could be really helpful for a lot of people. And it's that kind of figure out the stuff that's in your own area. And it reminds me of something that Lyle Blackburn told me I interviewed him a few years ago. Pretty much you need to make sure you're the expert for the weird stuff in your area. And it really makes sense because there's a good chance no one else is going to take the time to do it. When you were you're at the point where people know to talk to Tom Shay for certain counties. If you see something that's like a Bigfoot, go to Tom Shay. Mm-hmm. Was it when you were first starting to do that? Were you going to police departments and being like, hey, I'm Tom Shay. I research Bigfoot. If you get anything, here's my card. Were you doing stuff like that? Or do you have any advice if a person is trying to become that person for their area in the country? What are things that they could do to get their name out there to the right people?
Yeah, go to your police department, go to your local sheriff department, talk to emergency management, your judge exec. Like we have judge execs here. Talk to them. Tell them what you do, stuff like that. And if you hear anybody has any wild stories, have them come to me. Just keep me in mind. It's just like the LBL. Now, when that story came out and stuff, I went down there and I was in the LBL for a little bit, and I focused mostly on the story So I went to every place, the newspapers, I went to sheriff's department, state police, everything, hospitals, and nobody knew nothing about this massacre at LBL. And I can't remember who it was, but I think it was a county official said, "Oh, that was just made up for tourism to get people in here." And I didn't find anything, not even in the newspaper in the area, or the police department, not the sheriff's department looked at me like, "Hey, state police too. What are you talking about?" You've got to actually go out and research this place, research your area. If something like that comes up, deep dive into it really good. One of the best places to go is if you have a restaurant, a country restaurant in your town or something like that everybody congregates in the morning, drink coffee, and you get in there, and most of the older gentlemen do. That's when you want to go in there and you sit on there, sit and drink coffee and listen to the stories they're telling each other. Strange cattle mutilations that happened, and something broke into my corn crib, and listen to those stories. And then you get a chance, invite yourself into that story and talk to them. Excuse me, I overheard you say that. Can you tell me what you're talking about? Be polite, and if they reject you being there, then back off. And that's how you want to do it.
I think that's great advice. When you're talking to like law enforcement departments and things like that, do you recommend talking to them face to face in person rather than over the phone, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Go to the office. Now, you might have to do that like several times because the receptionist or whoever it is that's in charge out there will probably, or whoever's running the desk will probably shoo you away. But you keep going back and finally you'll get some information.
Gotcha.
Because they don't look at you like you're crazy anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes sense too. Persistence and niceness is a great combination, I think. So I think that's some good advice for you to give out. But Tom, this has been just, I think, a really good conversation. A lot of stuff that people can take away from this chat to either start into the Bigfoot subject or to become better. I want to make sure that you have the time to share if there are ways that people can keep up to date with what you're doing, or if there's certain things that you want them to check out about your work that you've done, things like that. Feel free to share those at this time.
Yeah, I just looked me up on Facebook. I run the Northern Kentucky Bigfoot Research Group on Facebook. Anytime we ever do anything, we get any type of verified evidence, we'll post it. If you have questions, you can ask questions. There are a lot of knowledgeable people on that site that will give you an answer. And there's no bickering, no nothing. There's no fun making or nothing like that. It's all science-based. We're not running a fairy tale thing. We're running things that we have actual evidence that has been collected. A whole lot of experienced people. What is in this site? Even my team people are really. And the one thing I like about my team is they're not a yes ma'am, yes sir type of deal. It's all Bigfoot. If I say something, somebody will question me. That's what I want. I want to be questioned. Why do I believe this happened? And I'll explain. So just because, like I've told everybody else, I don't know it all. I'm still learning. But yeah, and you can look me up on Facebook too. You can get my email from there and stuff like that, and you can friend me, ask me questions. I'll help you out any way I can. Anybody.
Tom, that's great. I will definitely have the link to that group down in the description for this episode so people can find that easily. But then I appreciate you coming on today, and thank you so much. Best of luck in the future with your future investigations, and I hope they are very fruitful for you. Thank you for coming on the show today, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all of that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.